to North Korea and more. Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware is joining us. He's a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Will.
Are you worried about the Trump administration and its response to the North Korean threat?
I'm very worried, both about the lack of confidence expressed in Mike Flynn, the National Security Advisor, because of credible reports that he lied to the vice president and that he misled the administration, and because of how this incident at Mar-a-Lago was conducted. There's certainly enough evidence here to suggest that in a meeting with a head of state of a close ally, in a very difficult circumstance, President Trump was frankly partly showing off for his country club guests and making this somewhat of a spectacle. These sorts of important briefings between heads of state should be happening in a classified setting, not over cocktails and appetizers. And I'm concerned that North Korea continues to steadily make progress in their ballistic missile program, and we frankly don't have a plan for how to deal with this other than looking to China to be our partner in reining in North Korea's irresponsible and dangerous behavior.
The Chinese don't seem to be doing much, at least not yet.
No. And one of the things that concerned me about President Trump's diplomacy in his first week as president was that he took a call from the president of Taiwan and sort of set on its ear a 40-year-long established one China policy where the United States and the PRC had a settled understanding about how we would handle that. Just this past weekend, President Trump was forced to walk that back in a conversation with Xi Jinping.
Did he get anything in exchange for acknowledging this 40-year U.S. policy that there's one China and Taiwan as part of that China? As far as you know, did he win some concessions from the Chinese? Did they promise, for example, they would squeeze the North Koreans and slow down their ballistic missile program, their nuclear program?
As far as I know, no. It's possible. But I would think that President Trump would be boasting about having won that concession if that were the case. I think instead what happened was he made a significant misstep in his first days as president and has had to walk that back just to get back to neutral, back to the position.
So what you're saying, he blinked and he didn't get anything in exchange because he sees himself as the great negotiator. He knows how to deal with other countries and other people.
Well, there was a very troubling article on the front page of the New York Times suggesting that within the National Security Council, staff are somewhat concerned and demoralized that President Trump won't read anything more than one page, that he wants things with big maps and big graphs, and the lack of confidence in the National Security Advisor, Mike Flynn, and the lack of engagement with some of the career professionals who are there to provide advice on how to negotiate with China, how to engage them in this important work against North Korea. It was a very alarming article, and it's very disconcerting.
If his National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, lied to the Vice President and others, the White House Chief of Staff, the White House Press Secretary, denying that the subject of sanctions ever came up in those phone conversation with the Russian ambassador to the United States, should he step down?
That's a call for President Trump to make. But if I were in his shoes, absolutely. I would not rely on a national security advisor who, on such an important and sensitive issue as outreach to the Russians before the inauguration on the issue of sanctions, lied to the vice president and put me as president in the very uncomfortable situation of having to publicly distance myself from that position.
Do you trust the National Security Council with Michael Flynn as the head of that National Security Council? He's the president's chief national security advisor.
I have real concerns about General Flynn's background and experience, what he's said and done in the past, and his relationship with our intelligence community and with the career staff at the NSC. But that is, at the end of the day, the president's call whether to continue to rely on a national security advisor who's so compromised by his uneven relationship with the truth.
What does it say to you that at 4 p.m. Eastern, Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the president, goes on television and says the president has full confidence in Flynn? At 5 p.m. Eastern, Sean Spicer, the White House press secretary, says the president is evaluating the situation. No repeat of the words full confidence. And then they put out another statement saying that that is the operative statement. That's what the president wants the public to know, that the situation is being evaluated.
Well, this is the first 3 weeks of a new administration, but it suggests they haven't gotten their sea legs, that there's still a bit of a Keystone Cops aspect to their operation. Having control of your message on such an important issue as whether the National Security Advisor retains the president's full confidence or is being reviewed and considered for being dismissed is an absolutely essential message control issue. And I frankly think this does not reflect well on the Trump administration.
We just heard from your leader, the Democratic leader, the minority leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer. He wants an independent investigation of Flynn, the conversations he had with the Russian ambassador to the United States. And in the meantime, he wants Flynn's national security clearances to be revoked. Do you agree with him?
That's a strong step. I'll support Senator Schumer in those two steps to call for the security clearance to be suspended until there is some resolution about whether or not he intentionally misled the vice president on such an important national security matter as whether in advance of the inauguration he was engaging in his own private diplomacy.
Do you believe he should have national security clearances given the connections he's had with Russia since leaving the DIA, the Defense Information Agency?
It's very
Defense
troubling.
Intelligence Agency.
Very troubling the role that he played in advocating for Russia today, his very close relationship with Vladimir Putin and with the propaganda organs of the Russian government, particularly given the ongoing investigation into whether or not there was coordination between the Trump campaign and the Russian government in advance of the election. I do think that's very troubling.
Senator Coons, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Will.
Just ahead, did the Canadian